Welcome again, everyone, to this event on community planning of settlement services for the London and Middlesex Local Immigration Partnership, also known as the LMLIP. We appreciate everyone taking the time to join us tonight on this early August evening. My name is Nicole Beasley, and I'm a planner and engagement specialist with Dillon Consulting Limited, and I'm pleased to be here as your moderator for tonight's event. Just a heads up that the session is being recorded and the presentation component only will be recorded. And this will be made available to anyone who may have missed the session. And it'll be available to you too. So if you have to step away or if you miss anything, you can also catch up there. This is the second of our 2 launch events for this project. And we are looking forward to having a great discussion with you all. So I'd like to begin by acknowledging that the land on which we gather today is the traditional lands of the Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee, the Lenape, and the Adirondack. We acknowledge all the treaties that are specific to this area, the 2-row Wampum Belt Treaty of the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, Silver Covenant Chain, the beaver hunting grounds of the Haudenosaunee Nanfan Treaty of 1701, the McKee Treaty of 1790, the London Township Treaty of 1796, the Huron Tract Treaty of 1827, and the Anishinaabe of the Dish with One Spoon Covenant Wampum of the Anishinaabe and the Haudenosaunee. This land continues to be home to diverse Indigenous peoples, First Nation, Métis, and Inuit, whom we recognize as contemporary stewards of the land and vital contributors to society. We will be looking forward to working with Indigenous rights holders and organizations through the project process. So we'll just go to the next slide here for an overview of our agenda. To start us off, we'll do a round of introductions, then we'll go into an overview of the presentation with key highlights of the project team and what this project is all about. We'll then walk through the engagement approach and some of the upcoming opportunities to participate. We'll then have some time to take you through your questions and have a discussion that will help us to inform the current phase that we're in of this project of information gathering. And then for the discussion, we'll have 2 breakout rooms. One will be facilitated in English and the other in French. So you can select which room is most comfortable for you. As you listen to the presentation, please take notes of any comments or questions that you might have. And we'll have time to go over both during the discussion component. And you can feel free to share any questions or comments in the chat as we go. And we'll just go ahead to the next slide for a couple housekeeping points. So if you're joining us tonight from a smartphone, you can switch between the webcam and slideshow view by swiping the screen. And like I mentioned, there will be dedicated pause points following the presentation to address your questions or comments. But do please feel free to use the chat or raise your hand and we'll call on you to speak, or use the chat box if you prefer to type your question. And please do change your name on Zoom to add your organization so we know who you're working with if you're affiliated with anyone. So we'll go to the next slide for some introductions. With us are a number of team members from the LM working group and members of the consulting team. So from the LMLIP working group, we have Professor Vicky Esses, working group co-chair and the director for the Center of Research on Migration and Ethnic Relations at Western University. Dr. Dave Sanani, Working Group Community Co-Chair and Associate Dean for the School of Information Technology at Fanshawe College. Huda Hussain, Coordinator for the LMLIP. Paulette Desjardins, Director of CCFL. Lisette Ochoa, Coordinator of International Programs and Global Education at Brescia University College. Rochelle Kouassi, Project Coordinator at the Réseau en Immigration Francophone, Centre Sud-Ouest de l'Ontario, and Zenaida Revenera, Community Volunteer with the working group. And from the consulting team, we have Aileen Murray, the consulting team lead, as well as David Campbell, Nicole Kaniki, and Zara Jaffer. With us is also Chantal Loise, our amazing French language facilitator, who is going to give us a brief introduction before we move on. So go ahead, Chantal.
Bonjour ceux et celles qui voudront participer à la session en français. Donc, c'est moi qui vais l'animer. On aura, comme on a dit tout à l'heure, il y aura deux salles, une pour ceux qui souhaitent le faire en anglais, puis une pour ceux et celles qui souhaitent le faire en français. Nous aurons aussi dans la salle francophone David Campbell qui pourra répondre à des questions plus précises que si jamais vous avez des éléments dont vous avez besoin d'informations. Merci.
Thank you so much. I see some folks have taken advantage of the chat to introduce themselves. Please, anyone else who's here joining us, please let us know who you are in the chat. Thanks, Mohammed and Melanie and Aileen. Great to have you here. Glad to see no tornado warnings yet, but some very dark sky. So we hope that the weather is good for us and we can keep going. So we'll get into it from here. We have two quick poll questions to start us off and help us get a sense of who we have participating with us this evening. So the first question is, and you'll see that poll just pop up on the screen there. What are the top 2 types of services that your organization provides? So you can use a short phrase or a word or two to let everyone know, for example, if your area of focus covers housing, employment support, training, education, community connections, and so on. So we'll just give you a minute or two to fill in that answer. So we're looking for top 2 types of services that your organization provides. And maybe if it's not necessarily a service, but any type of programming or goal or future goal that you might have. So I see a couple answers are trickling in. We can leave the poll open for a couple more minutes so we can hear from everyone on this. Okay, it looks like we might be getting another answer or two trickle in. I think perhaps we've slowed down now. So we can go to the next polling question here. So the next question that we're looking to get your answer on is, have you previously worked with the city or the LMLIP on a project initiative? So the options we have there are yes, no, or not sure, which is all right too. So this is for us to just get to know who's in the audience tonight. So it looks like many of you have worked with the city or the LMLIP, and a few no's as well. Okay, so that looks like everyone has answered there. Thank you, Zara, for launching that poll. And so with that, I'll hand it over to Aileen Murray to start off our presentation. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Nicole. Just want to give you a little bit of an idea of the background of who we've got working on this project and what it's all about. And we can go on to the next slide. First of all, I think that we've talked a lot about the LMLIP, but not everyone may be as familiar with that. So it's the London and Middlesex Local Immigration Partnership. And it is a collective of organizations. It's a collaborative community initiative helping newcomers to London and Middlesex County integrate into the community. So there are a variety of services that these organizations provide, and they connect immigrants with those services and making sure that that newcomers to the community, newcomers to Canada, are feeling welcomed and connected. We are responsible for providing awareness about services for new newcomers to Canada or new Canadians and immigrants. It is funded by the Ministry of Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship, but also supported by the Province of Ontario and the Association of Municipalities of Ontario, also known as AMO. The London Middlesex LIP is co-led by the City of London and a community member. And we can go to the next slide, please. So the way that this project is working is that there is a working group that is overseeing the operations of the consulting team. So Mellor Murray, my firm, is the lead consultant, but we have a working group of people that are engaged with the LMLIP and have been for some time. I think Nicole went through everyone's names earlier, but Victoria Essay, Jill Tansley, Huda Hussain, Dave Sinani, Lizette Ochoa, Paulette Desjardins, Rochelle Kawasi, and Zenaida Ravanera. So that group is our boss in this example. And if we go to the next slide, oh, I'm sorry, before we do that, so Mellor Murray's lead consultant, we've got David Campbell, who was introduced earlier, Jupia Consultants, who specializes in economic and demographic analysis, but also has a very healthy background in immigration and resident attraction. Dylan Consulting is leading all the stakeholder engagement for this exercise. And we have Nicole Kaniki from Sonoe Solutions, who is providing and making sure that we are keeping an equity, diversity, and inclusion lens in everything that we do. Now we can go to the next slide. So there is an advisory panel that is also working on this project, and the advisory panel is responsible for making sure that the findings that we have, that they make sense, that we're engaging with the right people, that the model that we ultimately develop through this project is appropriate. So they're providing support and advice for the development of the community-based model for settlement services. They are subject matter experts because they live and breathe every day in their particular environments and bring that subject matter expertise to this project. They are participating today. Some of you with stakeholder engagement, but will be participating throughout the process. They will be providing feedback on the report that comes from stakeholder engagement, but also for the designs and the models that we will develop through this process. And the members of the advisory panel are Neil Bradford, Hani Hassan, Graham Henderson, Cindy Howard, Paul Levac, Ramina Morris, and Star McGahey Albert. So we've got a big group there again, but this group, unlike the working group, is really responsible for helping to make sure that we're making good decisions as we're working through developing that model. And we can go to the next slide, please. So just to give you an overview of what we're hoping to achieve today, the vision for this project, which is in the next slide, is to develop a more responsive model of settlement service delivery and funding that meets community needs, contributes to improved settlement outcomes for immigrants, and creates a more welcoming community. So previously and today, the model that we have for providing settlement services is one that has been dictated by the IRCC. And this is an opportunity, and we have been asked by the IRCC to look at what the potential is for a model that is made in and made for the London and Middlesex area. Now, this is the second of these inaugural workshops that we're doing. In the first one, we were asked about is this a strategy for settlement services? And it isn't. We're not being tasked to develop the strategy for settlement services. What we're being asked to do is consider the governance, the collaboration, and the funding perspectives for a made in London and Middlesex model. And that is something that's happening across the country. There are, I believe it's now, we're up to 16 different communities across Canada that will be doing this model. And so IRCC is very interested in what the similarities may be between those various models, but also the differences. And I do expect that there's going to be some significant differences in the model that we develop as a result of this exercise. If we can go to the next slide, please. The objectives then are to look at community-based models of settlement service delivery and funding. So get an understanding of what some other communities are doing and whether or not some of those models might be appropriate for the London Middlesex area. To look at alternatives for the present funding models, to look at how the community-based decision-making can be made, and to make sure that the model that we present, again, is effective and efficient and reflects what London and Middlesex is aspiring to and what it has, its makeup is today. It will take into account what our local needs are and what the priorities are within the region. And we can go on to the next slide, please. And I'm going to turn it over to David for a moment.
Thanks, Aileen. Well, I appreciate being here with you this evening to talk about this very, very important project for the community. So why this project? Why now? Well, across the country, we are now relying on a larger number of immigrants coming to our communities and international students as well, and temporary workers to meet workforce needs now and to plan for workforce needs in the future. Something like 30% of all the workers in the workforce in London Middlesex are going to retire in the next decade or so. And we need to make sure we have the right talent pool to ensure that our communities can continue to meet workforce demand, both replacement demand and growth demand in the years ahead. This is a very exciting time for London Middlesex. The economy is strong. There are a number of very important industries: manufacturing, post-secondary education, professional services. That these industries are doing very, very well, and they're anchoring a very, very strong economy right now. But there's already signs of challenges related to workforce demand. So one of the main reasons why we attract newcomers to our community is for them to be able to advance their careers and meet workforce demand in our community. If you look at just some of the data points we've put on the screen here, we've already seen a doubling of the number of permanent residents settling in the London urban area. So that's London and surrounding communities. Just between 2019 and 2021, we're now up to about 6,000 or more permanent residents settling in the community last year, and probably the number will be higher this year. So we need to make sure we've got the right settlement infrastructure, the right environment, so these folks joining our community can be successful, can thrive in their careers and their family objectives. And that's a key reason for undertaking this project now. If you look at the share of population growth coming from immigration, it's now over 60%. So really leading the way now in terms of population growth. And London has been one of the fastest urban centers for population growth across the country. Middlesex is doing well as well. We have attracted immigrants from over 70 different countries just in the last year. So a broad mix of folks coming in from many, many different countries, but that also makes us want to sharpen our pencils and make sure we've got the right settlement services to support this broad mix of folks coming from all over the world to our community. If you look to the future, we have some projections that would suggest we're going to add about 8% to the employment base between 2021 and 2028. So that's just 8 short years. So with all these people retiring and this need for growth, we need to make sure we've got the right folks on the ground to help us with that need. And one of the great things about the London area is the large number of international students relative to the size of the population. I think it's the largest base of international students among any medium and large size urban center in the country. So that's an incredibly important talent pool that we can pull from to meet workforce demand in the years ahead, but we have to make sure we have the right services to support them. As Aileen said, IRCC is looking at similar projects across the country. And of course, as she also said, London Middlesex is a pretty unique situation. You've got one large city and then a number of smaller communities throughout the county and rural areas as well. So how we coordinate the urban and the smaller community and rural settlement services to make sure that we're meeting population growth opportunities across the entire county and taking advantage of the different services that are available in the urban center. That's one thing that's pretty unique to the model here in London Middlesex. And ultimately, What we're trying to do, as I said, is encourage better retention, social and economic outcomes for newcomers, and it will help them advance their family and career objectives, and it will help our community as we look to ensure we have the tax base to pay for good quality public services, and we have the workforce that our employers need to grow their businesses in the years ahead. So it's an exciting time. We're very, very happy that you're able to join us, and we hope you join us throughout this whole process. So we make sure that the model we're proposing at the end of the process reflects what you, the key stakeholders, are telling us is the right model moving forward. So I think with that, I'll turn it back to you, Aileen.
Thanks, David. And I just want to walk through the methodology that we'll be using to develop this community-based model. It's a 5-phase process that we're looking at. We are in phase A, the first phase, environmental scan, where we're really trying to define what is happening in London and Middlesex today, and really get a good handle on that. We have 3 post-grad PhD students that are doing a significant amount of research for us on economic and demographic analysis. They're doing a look at models on community-based funding. They're also looking at what is existing here in the region. So if you hear from one of those students, we certainly appreciate if you're able to get back to them with that whatever information that they are looking for. But that's part of it. And then we are in that first phase of consultation where we really are trying to understand what's happening today. Are there gaps? Are there things that are missing? Are there overlaps? Is there sufficient funding? Where's the funding coming from? All of those things are things that we're looking at in this first phase. This will go through to the fall of 2022. Starting in October 2022, we will begin the planning consultations. And this is where we'll start, we'll base this step on what we've learned in the environmental scan, but we will be really identifying, okay, what is needed for a London Middlesex solution? What are the various models what are the various pieces that we would need to look at? Are there models that others have seen that we need to be really taking a good look at? So that phase will be really important to try to define what the opportunities are for London and Middlesex. Then as a consulting team from March through June of 2023, we will be working on identifying a long list of models that could be the potential solution for the London Middlesex area, and everything from the governance model, how people will collaborate, how funding would be collected, would it come from other sources other than just IRCC, how all of that would work, and so we'll have that long list. Through the next set of consultation, we'll develop a short list of 3, and then ultimately go to one model that the group hopefully is comfortable enough with, that we will really go ahead and build that out in the final phase in great detail, so that IRCC has an understanding of what a London Middlesex solution would be for a really community tailored settlement services plan. And so that's what we're looking at doing. It's quite an undertaking, as you can see, going from April of this year through to December of 2023. It really is important to us and to IRCC and to everyone within the LMLIP that we hear from as many people as possible, that you are able to contribute your thoughts, your ideas, and that they are reflected in this model. One of the things that IRCC is really looking for in all of this is not just what our solution might be, but how did the process go? Are there opportunities for learning there as we look at what a future model could be? And with that, I will turn it over, Nicole, to you, and we'll carry on.
Thank you so much, Aileen and David. So I'm going to share an overview of our engagement approach that we're taking for this project. But before we do, I wanted to take a quick pause and invite Huda from the LMLIP working group just to give us a quick overview and explanation of what settlement services are, as this is an important part of our meeting tonight. So I'll hand it over to you, Huda. Thank you.
Yes, hi there. For those of us who don't understand about the settlement services in London, there are seven settlement services in London that provide integration in different fields like information and referrals and support for newcomers. And there is one that provides settlement focus on employment in London. And these are funded by Immigration, Refugees, Citizenship Canada, and they've been existing in the city and the region for almost 4 decades now. And initially, this is what they do: information, referrals, and support, information about the culture, the Canadian culture, the justice system, the schools, the neighborhoods, the housing. And they also plan with the newcomers about what they wanted to see in the next 3 years or the next 5 years. They also do some kind of approach to information about the culture, the Canadian culture, and the labor market. So in short, this is what they do, the settlement services. But I do, here we've got 2 settlement providers, Muhammad and Jennifer. They might add something if I've missed something. I'm just trying to be kind of precise about the services that they provide. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Appreciate that. And of course, if you have any questions or comments, you can raise your hand or utilize the chat as well. So we'll just head on to the next slide here. So for our engagement process, we have compiled a contact list of over 300 organizations across London and Middlesex that cover a broad range of services in areas related to settlement as well as non-settlement services. And this includes a number of Francophone organizations as well. And this list was compiled based on input from the LMLIP working group, and we anticipate that it will continue to evolve throughout the project. So if you have any suggestions about individuals or organizations who should also be invited to share in this discussion, we'd be really happy for your recommendations. So feel free to put those in the chat, or you can email those as well. And we'll just go over to the next slide. So there's a number of different ways that will be available for you to participate in this project. And this includes meetings such as this one, as well as focus groups where we'll be doing a deeper dive into key topics with smaller groups. We also have the opportunity to do one-on-one interviews for participants who may have missed a meeting or prefer to have a more closed setting for information sharing and dialogue. We'll also have some online surveys and access to a project website for sharing documentation and videos and presentations. So on the next slide, we've outlined our process here. We have a number of sessions that will be taking place over the course of August, September, and October as part of the environmental scan phase that Aileen just described a moment ago, which will also include opportunities for more in-depth discussion on challenges and opportunities related to the current ways that settlement and supporting services are delivered. And following that, we'll share what we've learned throughout the process so far and a discussion on any remaining knowledge gaps. And so on the next slide, beyond the current environmental phase, future meetings in the later phases of the project are slated for early in the new year as well as next fall. And there are a number of ways that you can stay in touch and informed, including via the project engagement website on Social Pinpoint. And we have that website there. And Zara's put the link in the chat. Thank you, Zara. And you can also reach out to Aileen, like I said, who's the consulting team lead, if you'd like to schedule a one-on-one or share any information with her directly. So she has her email there. And maybe I'll just ask Aileen to put the email in the chat as well, so folks can easily copy and paste that to their computers.